Hi leaders, good morning everyone. We meet again in chemistry. Yeah, in this chapter, in chapter 7, we will talk about electrochemistry. Alright, we go to the part 1. Yep, in here, we will talk about the electrolysis is the decomposition of an ionic compound when molten or in aqueous solution by the passage of an electric current. And basically, electrolysis involve breaking apart ionic compounds using electricity. Remember that the ionic compound should be either melted or in water so that they have free ions in order to allow electricity to pass through. This is an electrode. An electrode is a conductor of a metal or graphite rod that allows electric current to go in or out of an electrolyte. The electrolyte is the molten or aqueous substance that undergoes electrolysis. Molten means heated until it becomes a liquid, and aqueous means dissolved in water. Now, just a quick reminder, if an atom loses electrons, it becomes a positively charged ions, known as a cation. If it gains or takes in electrons, it becomes a negative charged ions called an ions. Okay, if you see again from the chapter about elements and compound, you can see this representation that cations are positive charge and anions are negatively charged. Okay, the cathode here is a negative electrode, opposite charge attract. So the negative charge on the cathode pulls the positive charge cations toward it. So cathodes attract positively charged cations. And the anode is the positive electrode is attract the negatively charged anions towards it. Here's a tip to remember which electrode is positive and which is negative. A cathode attract cations. That's easy to remember since both start with a cat. We already learned it. A cat is a positively charged ions. Okay, you have to remember if we put the positive cation instead of the T in cations. So remember again, if opposite charge attract each other, so if a cathode attract positive ions, then it must be negative. Likewise, an anode attract anions. This is also easy to remember since both start with N. Anions are negatively charged ions. Okay, remember again the word negative when you look at the letter N in an ion. The opposite charge attracts, so if an anode attracts negative ions, then it must be the opposite, which is positive. During the electrolysis, an electrocurrent is required to flow through this circuit. At the power supply, it is the electrons that carry this electric charge through the external circuit. The electrons move from the power supply to the cathode, making it negatively charged. The anode becomes positively charged as it loses the electrons. And the positive cations in the electrolyte move towards the cathode when they gain electrons. The negative anion in the electrolyte move toward the anode where they lose the electrons. The electrons from the anode move back toward the power supply. When the current flows in the electrodes and wires, it is the electrons that carry electrical charge. When the current flow in an electrolyte, it is the ions that move and carry the electrical charge. We should be able to predict the identity of the product at each electrode during electrolysis. As we just learned, please remember that the positive ion or cation will always move toward the cathode, and the negative ions or anions will always move to the anode. The electrolyte can be either a molten compound or an aqueous solution. A binary compound is a chemical compound composed of two different elements, and molten compounds are in a liquid state due to being heated to high temperature, typically above their melting points. So, if the electrolyte is a binary molten ionic compound, we know that once it undergoes electrolysis, the ions in the electrolyte will be just the two elements that make up the compound. For example, in an ACl, its ion percent will be Na plus and Cl minus. During electrolysis, we mainly look at how electrons move. During electrolysis, we mainly look at how electrons move. When ions touch the electrode, electrons are either lost or gained, creating neutral substances. And these neutral substances are then released as product at the electrodes. At the anode, negative ions lose electrons. This is oxidation. So, oxidation is when something loses electrons. And at the cathode, positive ions gain electrons. This is reduction. So, reduction is when something gains electrons. An easy way to remember this is the mnemonic oil ring. Oxidation is loss of electrons and reduction is gain of electrons. We use ionic half equations to show these processes, making sure the charges are balanced. And for example, for the electrolysis of molten sodium chloride, this will be the ionic half equation. At the anode, two chloride ions lose two electrons to form Cl2 gas. And so it's rearranged to be written like this. At the cathode, sodium ions gain an electron to form sodium. That's it, my explanation today. See you in the next video. Thank you for watching.